Hello and welcome to Moving Through Menopause. I'm joined today by Elizabeth Webb, and Elizabeth is a chartered financial planner. And so we are talking numbers and sums and goodness knows what else. Good morning, Elizabeth. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you this morning? Well, afternoon now.
Oh gosh, do you know what? I keep forgetting the time of day. I'm good, and I have to admit that maths was never my strong point at school. So do you know what? Finances kind of fill me with dread, and I'm quite sure I am not on my own with this. We kind of think I feel overwhelmed actually quite often when I even start to think about it. It makes me want to run and hide. So and I don't think, as I said, I don't think I'm on my own. And menopause is a time when we start to maybe become a bit more reflective, or planning for the future, which is getting closer and closer. A time for retirement maybe, and well, hopefully at some point. And those caring responsibilities that sometimes clip us on the heels. It may be children who are headed out of the nest but still financially dependent upon us, or parents equally, and some of us are trapped in the middle of that sandwich. So money's it's a major concern, and I think it was you that mentioned to me that you're really passionate about wealth as part of health, and this is absolutely the case, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And you say that you're terrified about numbers and finances, and you are definitely not alone. I think pretty much every client I speak to, or every potential client, anyone who mentions money, unless they're in the industry, it literally fills everyone with dread. And I'm quite lucky in that I am part of the financial industry. So I have had to learn all of the numbers and the rules, and I've had to get used to it. But I can be completely oblivious about other things, like how to fix a tap, for example. No idea. If anyone asked me to do that, I would probably run away from them. So that fills me with dread. But luckily, I can just say, I can get a plumber in to help with that. Unfortunately, with finances, you can't really avoid thinking about it forever, because at some point it's going to nip you in the bud, and you're going to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, there are so many kind of emotional things that come into play when you're talking about finances, that yes, the health and wealth aspects go together, because money actually causes stress. So whether you have it or whether you don't, people get stressed about it either way. And the health side of things, if you're not looking after that, then you almost can't look after the money side of things as well. So actually getting to the first stage of coming to someone and saying, I don't know what I'm doing with my money, that is a really big step, but a really important one.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. If we've got a toothache, we go to the dentist. So why not? If we're confused about our finances, which I am definitely in a place of confusion at the moment, why not go to a financial planner to help us unpick, the where are we now picture, and then that business around where do I want to be and how do I get there. And so this is, something that I'm thinking about at the minute. 54. Can you believe it? I'm sure. I'm sure I don't look it. There you go. I said it
Not
myself.
at all.
Um, and so thinking, 65 used to be the old age pension. Maybe is it 67 now? I think for
For you, it'll be 67. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and it's just getting later and later. So 65 was kind of a time when I thought I might be ready to hang up the bally pumps or whatever. And so that's only 11 years away if I do my sums right. What can I do, Elizabeth?
Well, the first thing, as you say, is actually ask the question, what can I do? Unfortunately, that does bring about a lot of other questions. It's kind of a case of, well, what do you want to do? What do you want in life? And how do you want to live it as well? So it used to be the case that people would work in a job for their whole lives. They'd build up a pension through the job. They'd get a state pension as well. And then the day came, 65 for men. It used to be 60 for women.
Oh,
The day would come that they reach that birthday, and then they just say, see ya, and run off into the distance to have a nice retirement. Now, that has changed significantly because of the way that people live their lives, the way that they deal with their families, and different familial responsibilities along the way. So the age 65 or the age 67, as it will be for you, isn't so much a target date where everything will have to change. And it isn't so much a target date where you might want everything to change. You might want things to change before then, and do different things in your retirement. You might not want to give up work at all, but there's still this age that something needs to happen. It doesn't really. It's more a case of, what do you want? So you might really enjoy the role that you have now, the work-life balance, and you might want to continue that past age 67. There's no one that's going to tell you you have to stop at that age.
no.
It's only what you feel comfortable doing. Obviously, if you were in a very manual role, then you might want to stop a bit earlier than that. And again, that can be possible. It doesn't have to be you work until state pension age and then retire. It's just a case of you work and you change roles and you change your lifestyle and you continue with whatever that lifestyle may be. Now, once you've kind of tried to work through those questions, which, in case you haven't realized, aren't particularly financial, what do you want from life? How do you want your life to look? Then I can come in and go, well, here's the finances that we've got going on at the moment, and how do we get to what you want? So it's that stage that we need to go through. And it's funny that you say, I was bad at maths, and so I wouldn't be a good financial planner or anything like that. It's almost a case of the mathematical ability takes a back seat, if you like. And when we're talking about retirement, especially, it is very almost like being a counselor, to be honest, because you are asking those big questions, how do you want your life to look? What's going on in your life right now? And that can always bring out all kinds of things, especially if it comes to kind of caring responsibilities, which can affect a lot of people. And if women are going through any kind of menopause or physical changes, then again, it can affect how they're feeling.
Well, and not only affects how you're feeling, but how you think as well. So I guess for me, the thing that I value is flexibility, and absolutely, I have a joyous job that I thoroughly enjoy, working for myself as a physiotherapist, Pilates teacher, yoga teacher. I mean, it's actually my hobby, I'm getting paid to do my hobby, which is fabulous. However, I kind of become aware that there's always a risk that my body may not wish to cooperate forever and ever and ever. And despite all the things that I do to look after myself, there's always the potential for something to go awry that you could not possibly have foreseen. And that equally could be a change in family circumstances. So whether it's health or family or whatever, I think, the thing that I value, as I say, is flexibility. And to kind of know that if, for whatever reason, I was unable to perform, that would be okay, under those circumstances. So is that making any sense to you?
Yeah, it is. And it's kind of brought up another thing, not so much to do with retirement, actually. It's more a case of protecting yourself now. So obviously, if you are in a position where you use your body for your work, then if you had a car accident and were paralyzed or something, then, what would you do? You'd have to completely change your life. Now, obviously, that's a big stressful situation in itself. If you don't have financial backing behind you, then again, it's an added stress, which no one needs when they're going through that. So that is potentially where some forms of insurance can be useful, to pay out lump sums or to pay ongoing income to you, if that were the case. Now, of course, in your situation, you're thinking a bit more about how long could I continue to do my job through potential retirement, and if something happened to me, would I just have to retire early? That is a slightly different thing, in that you can still get insurances in place and they can still help you, but you might want to then take that as kind of a choice to retire, as opposed to try and continue the way that you were. So that's where trying to come up with things to have in retirement can be quite useful. And yes, investments and pensions and things come into play there.
So this is the thing. The bank became a building society. I acquired a few shares, and then over the years, that's sitting there. We've got the cash ISA, and there's. I thought, oh, I know, I'll put this lump sum into a stocks and shares ISA. And then I've got a bit of an NHS pension sitting in Scotland somewhere that nobody seems to want to tell me anything about. It's such a model that and the more that time passes, I think this is something that must happen to everybody, because my children started out with a savings account, the Rupert Bear savings account, whatever it was. So it goes on, and if you're not careful, this whole thing mushrooms into a place where you really struggle to have a concrete picture of where you actually are. I mean, help.
Well, again, as you say, it is actually a really common thing. If you think about it as if you live in the same house for 30 years and you see something that you quite like, a little knick-knack, and you buy it. And after 30 years, you come to move the house and realize how much stuff you have and how some things don't really fit anymore. You don't really want to take them with you. Or maybe it'd be really handy if you kept all of these collection bears together or something like that. So it's just about the fact that you're going through life doing everything you can to enjoy your life, look after your family, actually manage through with the monthly bills, and you're just picking up these other financial things along the way, which maybe don't actually make sense altogether, but you're trying to do something which will save yourself for the future. So we just have to come to that stage where we go, okay, well, let's pretend we're moving house, and collect everything together, and then go, do we actually need that? Does that actually make sense? Is there a better way to hold it? So with things like direct shareholdings, which is what you would have got from the building society when it became a bank, you might think, well, actually, having a share certificate, I have to hold on to it, otherwise I lose the money. Actually, that's not so great. So I might sell those and put the money elsewhere. Or you might have a cash ISA, a stock market ISA. You might have a portfolio. So that's potentially just investments which aren't within an ISA, but are potentially taxable. You might want to try and put them all together. That's what a portfolio is. So you might have multiple different pensions because you've moved jobs and things. So you said that you have an NHS pension. That's from when you worked for the NHS. But if you'd moved to another company after that, you would have potentially picked up another pension. And so quite often you can put all your different pensions into one pension to make things easier. Whether that's the best thing or not is a bigger question, and also where a regulated financial advisor like myself would need to come in and say it is better for you or it's not, because there are lots of things that happened in the past which could be quite beneficial for you. which are an absolute minefield to go through. If you're worried about, shareholdings and having cash accounts as well, you really don't want to go into the whole mess that was pensions before 2016, because there were so many different kinds, and it's insane.
Okay, so that does make sense, and I was thinking that would be really quite a clever thing to do. Get it all in one place, and lay it out on the table, and because you kind of just lose track. So
Yeah.
that sounds like a very sensible place to start, and I think what you're saying is that to make the decisions then about moving forwards, what to do with this varied collection of bears, if you want to call it that. It really requires us to have an idea of the why. What is it that we're striving to achieve, and then you come up with the how. The how do we go about it? Or together, we would come up with that how.
Yeah.
So obviously there are lots of different options, but for me, I think, and maybe it's a generational thing, the pension, the idea that you have a pot of money put away somewhere and then it gives you money every month that you live on, but you never dip into the actual capital. I mean, is that even how it works?
Yeah, that is one of the options. So there are, as I said, there are lots of different kinds of pensions, but broadly speaking, it can fit into one of two categories. Either you have a defined benefit pension or a defined contribution pension. Now, your NHS one is defined benefit because it says when you reach age 65, you will get X amount per year for the rest of your life. Your spouse might also get 50% of that for the rest of its life.
Yeah.
So then, when you reach 65, that is what you'll get. You can't really access it beforehand, and it isn't like a pot of money which you're drawing down on. You literally just have that income forever.
Right.
That's also kind of what the state pension is as well. From age 67, you will get a guaranteed income for life.
Right.
The other kind of pension, defined contribution, is almost like a complicated tax investment pot. So what you're actually doing is you're putting money into a pension which holds investments, and then at some point in the future you then have a pot of money or investments within that pension which you then have to choose how you're going to use it in the future. You can buy a guaranteed income for life from that pension pot. But what that means is that you give that to an insurance company and they bet on how long you're going to live and how much they're willing to pay you for the rest of your life. That is literally it. If you choose to accept that, then you're gambling with the insurance company that you're going to live longer than they expect you to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So other things that you can do are, again, I said it was like an investment pot. So if you have investments, then they can generate income. And the income is what you could live off. So you could have an investment pot, live off the income, and then you'd still have access to that investment pot for the rest of your life. Obviously, stock markets go up and down all the time. So sometimes it's better to leave it rather than take income. And sometimes it's better to take more income, potentially, depending on how the stock market's going. So that's where, again, financial advice comes in. Does that work for you?
Yes, you can see some fear crossing my face at that point.
Yeah.
So this is there's no doubt this is complicated, but I do want to understand as much as I possibly can. I think it's really quite important that we have information to help us to make choices and decisions. And investments does seem to be something that it seems to be kind of put to the side for certain people. And I kind of like to think that it could be something that is accessible, to the ordinary human. So, is there a way in which you can help me to make this a bit more accessible for people?
Yeah, so again, it depends on how much you want to do yourself versus how much you want help doing it. Now, I would always say it's worthwhile talking to a financial advisor because um, any financial advisor who's worth their salt will be offering a free initial consultation. So, they'll talk through your circumstances a bit, get an idea about what's going on, maybe give you a few pointers as to how best to change your situation so it's slightly better. And that's generally all free anyway. So you come away, you've probably lost, an hour, 2 hours of your time, but you've gained something that will help you work through the next maze that is the rest of your financial life.
Yes.
When it comes to actually investing, it is possible to do it yourself and with relatively small amounts of money.
Oh,
Now, you need to be aware that if you put money into the stock market, what you're doing is you are giving your money to a company, and sometimes those companies might not do so well.
yeah.
And so if that happens, you could lose the money that you put in. Now,
Yeah.
that's always the worry. What if I invest £100 and it just disappears? What if it goes to zero? Now, that is potentially going to happen if you put all of your money into one company. So what I mean by that is if you invested into one specific shareholding, then that company went bust, you could potentially lose all your money. I'm a massive fan of ice cream, which potentially doesn't fit into the healthy side of things, but anyway, let's go with it. So the idea is if I paid £10 for a share in a company that sells ice cream, then obviously we're in the summer now and hopefully people will be eating lots of ice cream. That's
Yeah.
great. If I was planning on selling that £10 share in winter when it's -3 degrees outside and no one is eating ice cream, no one's going to want to buy it for £10. Or potentially the company didn't look after itself well enough, so it just can't continue through the winter.
Yeah.
That's where I could potentially lose my money.
Mm.
If instead I buy £5 worth of an ice cream company and £5 worth of an umbrella company, then if I need to sell something in winter, then potentially I've got the umbrella, which is diversifying from the ice cream, because generally speaking, when one does well, the other one doesn't do so well.
Mm.
So I'm diversifying, I'm kind of spreading the risk.
Oh, okay. You literally mean umbrellas.
I literally mean
Oh,
umbrellas.
sorry. So I've heard the term umbrella company as kind of
Oh,
a
okay. No,
generic
sorry.
term. Oh, so you literally mean umbrellas. I'm with you now.
Literally
Okay.
umbrellas. Yep.
Yeah.
Rainy day umbrellas.
Got
Everyone
it.
loves them.
Got it.
Yeah. And so that's what I mean by spreading your risk. You can do that in different ways as well through kind of investing in the UK versus investing in China. So very different economic situations there, very different potentials for growth, very different risks as well. But the point is, the best thing that you can do if you're considering investing is first talk to a financial advisor, because they will suggest that you instruct them to help you,
Yeah.
but they'll also give you some pointers along the way.
Yeah.
Second, diversify. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
There are quite a lot of different companies online that can help you to do investments as well. But you just need to be careful about going down that route, because there is that risk that you could end up putting all your money in one place and it not being safe.
Yeah. So I'm sorry I missed the umbrella.
It's fine.
So this is kind of advice that I am familiar with. Not not to put all your eggs in one basket. I do love those good old fashioned phrases. Um, and so there are companies that you can work with who have funds that invest in lots of different places. So you can invest in a fund. Am I right in saying this?
Yeah, definitely. So there could be some big investment managers that do have investment funds, the investment funds are invested in lots of different things within that. So they'll generally have some information on the top 10 holdings. And so you might be able to see companies that you recognize within there. For example, if you were looking at a US based stock market investment, you're most likely going to see something like Apple and Tesla in there.
Okay.
So it's just kind of looking through those companies and whether you think that the risk is appropriate for you. I would always say as well, when it comes to investing, don't bank on using the money in the next 5 years.
Oh, okay.
So the idea of stock market investment is for the longer term. And if, for example, in your case, you might be looking at some sort of retirement closer to 67, you've actually got enough time to consider that level of investment and potential risk that goes alongside it.
Yeah, and you mean, I know, like you say, the longer term is better, but you can withdraw your money, such as it is, whether it's gone up or down. If you had a rainy day, coming back to the umbrellas, and you needed to access your funds, that is relatively simple, isn't it?
Yeah. So again, it depends on kind of what you're investing in and how you're doing it.
Yeah.
So if you were under the age of 55 and you were investing within a pension, then it's a case of you can't access it before you're 55. So you just need to bear that in mind.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, all investments will say, hold it for the longer term, but you can actually access it earlier if you need to. I would say if you're thinking about kind of rainy day funds, though, then taking a step back from investment, think about what you actually need to have in the bank to make sure that you feel comfortable for any emergencies. So, for example, if the boiler broke down or if you didn't have any work for 3 months, try and have an emergency reserve in the bank, which is available cash in case those kinds of things happened.
Yeah, that's right. So that's, you mentioned 3 months worth of salary there. Is that a reasonable thing to?
Yeah, it depends on your situation and kind of the level of expenses that you could potentially cut back on if you were having issues. But somewhere between 3 to 6 months would be great. If it makes you feel better as well, the average person in the UK has less than a month's worth of expenses in the bank. So that is a massive risk for, well, pretty much everyone. If someone became unemployed, they're likely to not even have enough to cover a month's worth of being unemployed, which is quite dangerous. But, aiming for 3 months, if you haven't had an emergency reserve before, is a great target. 6 months might make you feel more comfortable, but it's not a requirement. It's all dependent on how you feel about the situation.
Yeah, that's, this is, I don't know, my growing up circumstances were that we were hand to mouth and month to month. And it was something that I really, really was concerned about. And so I've done my best to have the funds there for the rainy day, should it arrive. And this is something now that I really want for my family, for them to, my son to understand that when he gets a lot of money, he's a drummer and he's just been told he's got some gigs coming up and it's going to be a lot of money for an 18-year-old. And, you can literally see his brain go into that place of what can I buy? What can I get? What thing can I have? And I'm trying to encourage him to remember that, to put away some of this capital. I said, because maybe a bit like you're saying, ice cream and umbrellas, come February, the gigs might just be drying up, and and then what?
Yeah.
So, and I suppose that's the case for lots of us who are self-employed and maybe seasonality in work. At the moment, everybody's having a wonderful time running around outside and they're not so bothered about yoga and Pilates. They're like, oh yeah, I'll do that in the winter when it's raining. So there is a degree of seasonality to a lot of the work that we do. And I guess summertime is a bit of a down time for lots of businesses when there's holidays being taken and such like. So to have that buffer, at the back of you is really important. And so the pension really is just the next level of buffer that we can actually plan to not work should we wish to, and have that regular income. And so I mean, have we covered it all, Elizabeth? Is there more?
Oh, well, I'm afraid to say we've probably only scratched the surface in terms of kind of what you can go through and what the choices are and what to do. But it also comes down to your personal circumstances. So we can only go so far when we're talking generally, because a lot of different things can happen in everyone's different circumstances. One of the funny things when it comes to having a cash buffer is, obviously I'm a financial advisor, so I am very much a saver rather than a spender. I find it hard to spend money, just because I like to have a big buffer behind me.
Yeah.
My dad, who supports my two sisters financially and my mum, quite high costs on an ongoing basis, he is very happy to have less than £1,000 in the bank and just dip into his overdraft every so often. And it kills me because he is just that's the way that he decides to run his life. If he needs money, then he'll take it out of investments. If investments have gone down at that point, then he'll just take it anyway. It's very high risk, I would say, but it's personal circumstances, and that's how he chooses to go through life. He would rather have the chance investments go up than miss the boat, as it is.
Yeah. And this is what it comes down to at the end of the day. We are all individuals, and it's entirely our right to be able to live our lives the way in which we want to live them. But I really just wanted to, shine a light on some of the options that are available to us, because for me, this has just been, a bit like you. I really wanted to have this buffer at the back of me, and yes, I didn't know what the heck I was doing, and so I have created a bit of a monster which is going to require a little bit of assistance to unpick, I think, Elizabeth. So on that note, with me needing a little bit of help, I'm going to sign off and say thank you so much to Elizabeth today for giving her time to come and help us to maybe make a little bit more sense of our finances. Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Take care now. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.